What's the average amount that your clients spend on groceries in a month?
It's a good question. On average, that answer is $969 per month spent on groceries.
If I spend $1,000 a month on groceries, I could buy half the place. That seems like a huge amount of money to me. And you tell me that's the average?
That's right, Steve. But I will also tell you that there's some families that I've worked with who are only spending $350 a month to feed a family of 5. And I go see their poor, skinny little kids, and I'm like, get some protein in these babies. And then there's other families that spend more than $3,000 a month on groceries. And they're eating grass-fed beef and organic everything and supplements and vitamins. And I think, you've got some kids here, but not that many. So the spectrum is wide when it comes to how much families spend every month.
I hope they're
groceries.
rich because they're burning money on groceries.
Hi, I'm Steve. For nearly 30 years, I've been a pastor and disciple maker, and what I really love doing is helping guys be better followers of Christ and better leaders at home.
I'm Mark, a certified financial planner with an MBA and an Ivy League degree who wants to make sure you're making the smartest money decisions possible.
And this is Abraham's Wallet. Join us weekly and create a culture in your family of multi-generational prosperity, spiritually, relationally, physically, intellectually, and financially. Run your home, your dough, like a biblical boss.
The greatest thing you can put in your body food-wise is we're working on it right now during the podcast. It's being smoked in the smoker.
Cricket proteins?
No, it's not bugs. It is in fact the
Pork shoulder.
Beef rib.
Beef rib. That's an excellent choice on any occasion.
Brisket on a stick, as they say in Texas.
Yeah.
So that's happening. My wife, I had told her, we've kind of slacked on the Shabbats lately. She's making one of my favorite desserts tonight. We're having some other families to join us. It's just going to be, there's going to be a campfire. It's going to be a great Shabbat, I hope.
Tell me one of your favorite desserts, and I'll tell you one of mine.
My number one favorite dessert is carrot cake made by my wife.
And that's what's happening?
Tonight we're having number 2, which is homemade strawberry shortcake.
Number 2 is disgusting as a dessert. Ugh, gross. You have to put so much icing on it just to get it down.
Okay. We're having my second favorite, which is strawberry shortcakes, homemade.
Sounds great.
What about you? You just promised you're going to reveal your...
Well, just when you said we're going to have one of my favorite desserts, what sprung into my mind was the spongy and saucy deliciousness of a tres leches cake.
Oh, yeah.
And you blessed me with tres leches cake from Rio, the Rio Grande. Cafe Rio. I knew there's a Rio in there.
Well, I have been excited about today's episode for a long time, and so I don't know how much banter you've got, but I'm itching to get into it.
I'd happily jump into it. The only thing I want to, I have just one little administrative thing. And I never know if the people want to hear about this. We never know whether people want to hear this or not. I want to know this about other podcasts that I'm sort of a fan of. I always want to know, how's your podcast going? Like, are you guys going to be here a year from now? Are you going to fold up shop because you can't pay the bills? I don't know. And so I'm always interested how it's going. Well, I will tell you that Google has just told us that you're now a favored charity of ours, and we're considering giving you some grant money to run ads on Google. So that's kind of exciting. And
I never knew that they were huge fans of biblical patriarchy.
I don't think that's necessarily what motivates them as much as saying like public education about finances. I think they're interested in that idea.
Oh, okay.
Secondly, as of I just was checking to get online to make this little thing happen, this little production you see before you, and noticed that this last episode, which was we did a little live look into Ross Dykstra dedicating his business space. Mm-hmm. And has now become the most watched little YouTube video we've ever done. So that's good.
Yeah, we've had some bangers coming out on the YouTube. We've been experimenting with the short forms too.
Yes.
And those are like feast or famine, man. One of them gets 2,000 views, and then Steven goes and drops a turd like, "Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret," and 4 people watch it, and I think
Yes.
at least 2 of those were me.
I don't know if you caught that. I called it "Are You There?" Movie. It's me, Christian viewer, and nobody cares.
No, no. Um,
The answer
I
was
gotta say,
no.
I wasn't shocked at the underperformance of that particular YouTube short, but hey, you gotta try things to see what works.
Well, $16 million dollars worth of investment went into that movie in the first weekend. So there's 1 or 2 people who are watching that movie. They just don't want to watch anything about that movie.
I think that there's going to be some YouTube shorts to clip out of this puppy because we're going to answer a question that people are always asking me. And, we've been working one on one with families for almost 4 years now. We've
Cool.
reviewed over 200 budgets. And I've always wanted to, once we had a big enough pool of data, what are they spending on different budget categories? I think it's something people often wonder. What we're going to try to do today is give you some touch points for averages. And as we launch into that, I think it's very important to say the goal of this podcast is not to tell you here is how much you should spend on any one category. So, Stephen, I'm gonna let you talk about this for a second, but if you've listened to this podcast for very long, you've heard me say certainly that a budget is a funding plan for a family vision, and that means that we believe every family has a unique created set of individuals, and they have a purpose, and that could even be kind of teased out and defined in what we call a family vision statement. Um, and that when you create a vision for a family, your budget should reflect that. So if you are a family that is all about hospitality and your grocery budget is in the very bottom of the percentage barrel for how much you're spending on food, I'm going to poke you and go, I don't know if this budget is actually adequately funding the vision that you've laid out for why God made your family unique and the giftings He's given you and the things that bring you joy in the kingdom.
Yeah, you might have heard this statement before that we can find out who you are if all we look at is your calendar and your checkbook. If I find out where you spend your money and your time, I know who you really are. And so we believe that vision and budgets kind of work together. It's like, you know how the big fire trucks, there's a steering wheel at the front and there's also a steering wheel at the back because it's so long. We kind of think those 2 things have to work in unison with one another to get the job done. They have to be in concert. So if we find, as you just said, we find there's some outages between what somebody says, well, we really want our family to be about serving others. And then we see like, yeah, but all your money goes towards vacations that includes you, your wife, and your 2 kids, and you never involve anybody else. Then I say either you're fooling yourself and your vision statement is a lie because you just want to sound good. And really what you want to do with your life is soak all your money in on yourself, in which case, let's address that maybe. Or it could be that you just don't see how they sync up. You don't see how they're supposed to coordinate. So we think that one area can keep the other area honest. And we can make sure that what your finances say, how you're spending your money is in sync with your vision, and go, what we're doing day to day, week to week, month to month with our money is pushing our vision forward. We really believe in that here at Abe's Wallet. And that's why, as Mark says, you're about to hear the real story about what people really spend on their budgets.
That's right. And before we dive into that, we have produced a course, an online course that will allow you to walk through a family vision statement in 3 hours or less. You will be guided by none other than Stephen Manuel. And some people might have looked at that and said, I would love to do that. I would love to have a family vision statement so that I could create a budget that was a funding plan for that family vision, but I don't have the money that they're charging for that course. And I thought this would be a fantastic opportunity to offer a discount to listeners who might want to pursue that course. So what do you say?
Everything you've said is true about there being a course. That much is true. About me leading people through it, that is also true. And I'm with you 100%. Let's throw out a discount. How radical of a discount are you up for today?
50%? Would that be
50%?
Would you
Let's
like to go
bump it
bigger?
right up. Let's make it 58%. How about
58% off. So there's a link in the description of this podcast. There's a link in the YouTube show notes, wherever you're happening to listen to this. You can see the URL to get to that course. And what's the discount code going to be, Stephen? We're
the
shooting from
promo
the
code
hip.
it'll be quite simple. Let's say Abraham's Wallet will be the promo code.
Okay. The promo code is Abraham's Wallet, and you can do that if you're interested.
Bingo.
Okay. Now, really quickly, why did we wait to do this until we had a lot of data from families we had actually worked with? And the answer is, I went and looked at numbers, and I've done this many times over the past few years, for what does the average American spend on things. And I'll just tell you, they are not super helpful. And you might see all sorts of different numbers if you Google average grocery spending for a family of four, because those are going to include all sorts of families.
So you're saying that your data set with all of the families that we work with, that gets you people who have a modest income but have a reasonable budget for that income, and people who are high earners, but they have also reasonable, workable budgets. And so that cuts out people who are like poverty line. That's not going to help any of us as a reference point. And it's going to cut out the super rich gazillionaires who don't even count how much money they've got. So what you're saying is, if you look online, look at national averages, that might not be that reliable of a data set, or at least not comparable to the people who are listening to this. Whereas the people that we work with, that's really probably helpfully comparable. So I'm very interested to hear what these averages are. I've never heard these numbers.
Right. And I did that on purpose. You sometimes hate it when I do this to you, where I quiz you and make you take guesses.
If it's entertaining for the people, I'm up for it.
I don't know if they like it or not, because they haven't ever told us. They haven't ever said, we hate that Stephen guesses things
Don't
segment.
ask Stephen questions he doesn't know the answer to.
But I'm curious, just because I was trying to figure out a way to do this Family Feud style where neither of us knew the answers. I just couldn't, because I had to create the data set. So
Sure.
Special shout out this week to Daniel Smith, who is one of our colleagues, and he went through so many budgets, put all this data together, cut it and sliced it 1,000 different ways to be helpful. Let's start with the one that I think most people ask me about the most.
Okay.
What category do you think that might be?
Groceries.
That's right. It's groceries. How much do you think, as a percentage of total after-tax income? So this would be the money you have if you're working a job, a salaried job. This is probably your monthly paycheck. Whatever comes into you after taxes have been taken out. What percentage of that do you think goes towards groceries?
Bob, I'm going to go with 9% of your budget, of your income, is budgeted towards groceries. 9%.
Stephen, I don't know that this is even going to be, people aren't going to believe that it's real if you hit the nail on the freaking head.
Yes!
Right.
Come on!
The answer is 9.09%.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the gift of prophecy. That's how it works right there, everybody.
And if we boil that down,
Incredible,
to a percentage, in terms of kind of the median, it's a little lower. It's 8.5%. But yeah, the average 9%. Do you want to take a swing at what that number is for the monthly grocery spend in dollars? And this is an average. Keeping in mind, we might have families who are taking in $4,000 a month. We might have families that are taking in $40,000 a month or more.
When I was doing the dumb guy math in my head, I was thinking people probably spend more than I do. $850 a month. That was a guess.
Here you're a little low.
Okay.
The average is $969 a month, and the median, so the middle number, is $1076 a month.
Wow.
On groceries.
That's a ton to me. That sounds like a ton.
Really?
This whole little exercise that we're doing reminds me of once upon a time I was in a small group, and it probably was one of the most exciting little small group meetings that we ever did. We didn't open the Bible. Watch out, everybody. We had a little small group, no Bible. I think there might have been some prayer involved, because what we did was we had everybody present their budgets, and we literally passed them around the room. Everybody had to type out a budget, and we pass them around the room, and you look at somebody else's budget with your spouse, and you're making comments and you're writing notes on their budget, and then we pass them. And everybody's your budget gets back around to you, and there's like 6 notes on it. And I was gobsmacked, to borrow a British term, at what people spend on groceries. I just couldn't believe it. And we, Lodo Feb, ding, always exciting for us when we go like, we can get by on under $200 a month on groceries. That's very reasonable. Like we could do it. Just say no a few times. But like around our house, I'm thinking $600-$700 is a normal month. So that sounds like, wow, 50% more on a given month. Wow, what would I buy? Salmon every night? I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you where I live. Salmon every night will get you to about $600 a week on groceries.
Wow.
I think if you guys are at $600 or $700 a month for a family of 4, thank you for sharing that. Like I said, we weren't going to share specific families.
Oh,
data,
I'm sorry. I won't share. I don't know the answers to a lot of these categories. I just happen to know that one.
And on the podcast, you're allowed to share your own data, I guess.
Okay, there you go.
But yeah, you would be on the extreme low end for a family of 4.
Okay.
If you were at $600 or $700 a month. But there's a lot of families that I would say range in that $800 to $1,200 spot for a family of 4. There's larger families that, we had a very popular old episode of the podcast called How to Feed a Family of 5 on $350 a month. And that exists. But, that family of 5 that was doing that podcast 5 years ago now, those boys that were, I don't know, 9 or 10, 8, 9, 10 at the time, they're teenagers now.
They're eating.
They're not spending $350 a month anymore. I still keep in touch with Alexis, who did that podcast for us. And she laughs every time I tell her, people feel extreme condemnation when they hear that you spent $350 a month on a family of 5. So,
hey, a little aside on this. I thought of our Abe's Wallet family. This week I went to lunch with, there were about 10 guys there. And I went, we love large families around here. We think that's part of the plan, a part of God's plan. I looked around the room. I was just thinking, Jude, that guy's got a big family. That guy's got a big family. I just got out of the back of a napkin and added them up. And around the table, the average number of kids of the guys around the table was 4.8 for these 10 guys around the table. I thought, I like those averages. Anyways, that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Next category, probably the biggest category. It certainly is for our averages that most people spend on each month.
Housing.
That would be housing. You're right. Stephen, what do you think the survey says when we say housing average as a percentage of income?
Well, I know what they're supposed to give mortgage loans to. I know how that's supposed to work. And if I put a little bit of buffer room for people who are not maxing that out, whose income is larger than that, I'm going to say 21%.
Man, you're good at this. You're close. You're not as close as last time.
Oh, well.
But the average answer is 19.59%
Okay.
of income going towards housing. And I will say, like you said just then, there's some people who bought a house 7 years ago or 10 years ago, and their percentage of income going towards housing way less than if you had to buy a house 1 year ago, or even, God forbid, this year when
That's
interest
right.
rates are 8%.
Yeah. So whatever you can qualify for to get a loan, hopefully over time that percentage goes down against your earnings. That would make sense. That would make sense that number would be a little lower than I thought.
That's right. And I mean, if you combine your mortgage plus like a home equity loan, you can get a loan now for 45% of your pre-tax income, which would put you at well over 50% on our chart here.
Yikes.
So it's
Don't do that,
possible.
everybody. If you qualify for that loan, don't take out the loan. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's possible to get overextended. But I also talked to people who have been shopping for houses in the last year, and things are kind of out of whack, like we just said, in the interest rate environment and things like that. And they start to think, well, it would be normal for me to spend 35% of my income on housing. And
Yes.
there certainly are lenders who will give you that loan right now.
Yes. It
And
would
so
be normal.
that's
That-
where I actually think, not to give you, again, not to condemn you, but to give you a useful data point, that would put you outside of kind of the average band. I would want a really compelling reason to say yes to that move with your budget, if that's what you're going to do. Because even though housing is really expensive right now, it forces you to make all sorts of other decisions with the budget if you're going to allocate 35% of it to housing right off the bat.
I'm happy to put my name on the line and say that's a dumb move and you shouldn't do that. And your reasons are probably that your lust and your desire out distances your earnings. So you shouldn't do that.
Let's have a quick sidebar here and just see
Okay.
if we can have some productive disagreement. I do think the Lord calls people to all sorts of places. I know families in New York City that the Lord is doing great things with their family there, but just to rent a 2-bedroom apartment, they've got to spend 35% of their income. What do you think about that, Stephen?
I don't believe you.
Excuse me?
They have to live on Manhattan.
No. When we start to look at high cost of living places, you can save some money by living an hour away, but you tend to spend that money back in your commute and time lost and other places. So I'm not going to say it's a hard and fast rule that you can never make that trade.
Okay. Proceed.
All right. We did not have an interesting disagreement sidebar there.
Well, we just disagree. I'm happy to move on.
Okay. How about utilities? Phone, internet, power bill, water bill. What do you think people are spending on utilities, Stephen?
I'm going to be bad at this one, really bad. Let's go with 3%.
The survey says 4.5% of income is
Okay.
getting spent on utilities. So that's about $482 a month on average.
Where do you think that there's a place where people are leaking resources commonly on utilities?
And this is where we might sound like the very stereotypical financial bloggers, because people spend a lot of money sometimes on places where they don't need to. If they are buying, let's say, cell phone service from a name brand provider, you can go get the same cell towers to power your cell phone for $50 a month that AT&T will charge you $100 a month for.
Advertise. Tell us who that is. Who'll service your phones for a sweet deal?
Man, there's a lot of companies out there. Pure Talk USA is one that I always hear advertising on podcasts. I recently looked them up. What I did is I found that Xfinity, the company that provides my home internet, was willing to add my cell phone to the plan for $50 a month, which saved me a bunch of money.
Wow.
Which brings us to another place, home internet. If you haven't shopped your home internet in a long time, last time I did this, I will realize we were paying $170 a month for home internet. And there was somebody who would give us equally fast service for less than $100 a month. So there's lots of places in, especially that kind of newer, I don't know, maybe in Texas, you have all sorts of options with your power bill. In Utah, doesn't exist. You just get what, if you would like electricity, you buy it from one place.
Yeah.
But I think internet, phone, and then of course, most of the people that we do this budget with will include things like streaming services into that budget category. So if you've got Amazon Prime or Netflix or things like that, we'll put that in here too.
Yeah.
So obviously, one option, if you're way over the average here, is just kill all those extras.
Here.
Let's talk about, what about kids' activities? Now, obviously, this doesn't apply to you if you have no kids. Probably doesn't apply to you if you're grandparenting and your kids are out of the house. Although you might be spending on, I know there's some people that would be included in this data set that are spending on grandkids' activities because they, want to generously bless grandkids and say, we're paying for soccer, things like that.
Does school count?
No, I'm not including tuition here. This is purely, if I was looking at the Manuel family, I would think this is your ballet budget, your soccer and basketball budget, things
Good
like
gravy.
What do you think it's at, Steve?
I think it's probably very near utilities. I'm going to say 4%.
The answer is 3.92%.
Boom.
So I'm going to call that within 10 feet of the pin. You got real close there.
Thank you.
So the flat number average comes out to $418. A methodology note: we removed people who were a zero. So if you were a zero in that category, we didn't factor you into the category.
Because you obviously don't care about your kids.
Right. Same deal with student loans. It's, if you have student loans, then, I might as well tell you, then on average, you're spending 0.58% of income on student loans. You know why that is, Stephen?
No.
Because nobody has to freaking pay their student loans back these days. It's been about 3 years since anybody's been required to make a student loan payment.
Is that right?
For most people. Now, there's certainly folks who have private student loans that have not been frozen, things like that. But federal loans still we're in this weird, we can't cancel or forgive them, but we aren't making you pay them.
Are there people who have integrity inside themselves that pay against them even when they're not required to?
Well, Steve, in effort to be as good of stewards as possible of money, what I have noticed that a lot of families that we've worked with are doing right now is they're saying, until this money is forgiven by somebody else that has the authority to do so, we are going to be responsible and prepared to pay this back. Meaning they have taken the money they would have been spending each month into payments on the loan and just accumulated it so that they are prepared and ready to make that payment at whatever time the payments resume. Now, they're not living as if it'll never come due. Right. They are preparing to pay their obligations, and just like there's changes to government programs all the time that we may not think are good ideas, but we certainly will say, I think about the checks that were sent out during COVID. Not a good idea, but I didn't send my check back to the government either.
That's right. I'm sitting in a space that was maintained because there were PPP loans that should not have existed, but if they're handing out the money, okay.
Right. So that's student loans. Right now, shockingly low percentage of budget for those who have student loans. What else are you curious about?
I'm curious about entertainment budgets.
Okay, let's talk entertainment.
And I'm curious about vacations.
Entertainment, I'll just say qualitatively, is one of those categories that has the biggest variance, and it doesn't seem in my kind of non-scientific, I haven't gone back and checked this with individual families, but it doesn't seem like it's very correlated with how much money a family makes.
I believe
some people
that.
spend a giant chunk of their money, but they don't make very much on this. Others
Totally believe
make
it.
a ton of money and they never go do anything fun. So, what do you think it is?
Well, I think most families have some ongoing subscription service or two. So
Right.
I think we start at like $50 a month. And then I don't think most people go to concerts, but I think that people they go do fun things. I don't know where, a day trip, a vacation, or is it entertainment? I'm going to say 2%.
I'm gonna give you one more data point that might help you.
Okay.
When we consolidated all the different, because what I'll get people's budget in whatever format they have it, and I'll consolidate into my categories. In entertainment, I include eating out.
Oh, well, snap. And America loves bowling. Are you figuring in the bowling spending into that too?
Yeah, I mean bowling. I'm including,
Dude, if you're including eating out, I'm going to go 5%.
Okay, the answer is 2.84%.
Well done, everyone.
And that comes out to an average of $303 a month.
Okay.
So I don't know what it is. This number, my hunch, if we went and looked up American average spend as a percent of budget on eating out, my guess just the eating out would be more than 2.84%. But
yeah, do you trust the numbers that you have? You think everybody's reported completely accurately?
no, not at all. I think these are people's kind of target budgets, and just
Yeah, it feels a little low.
having worked with families, some people nail their budget to the dollar every month. Some people are just working hard to see if they can hit those numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. This is how much each family has allocated
Budgets.
towards that category.
Okay. Still helpful to know.
Are you telling me the Manuel family might be a little above this? This is what I thought when you said $600 a month on groceries. Is I thought, I bet there's some eating out budget happening in that family.
No, I think that we're well below on people's eating out as well. Here's a little magic tip. You got 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds around your house. You're creating precedents of food for them. And if every time you're bored or every time the kids get a treat, you go, it's Chick-fil-A night, it's pizza night, you're creating a precedent. I'm not kidding when I tell you that it's still the case. I've got a 13-year-old. It's still the case in my house that when my children get to choose what meal we're going to have at night, I'm not kidding, they'll ask for beans and rice around the house because there's usually a protein and beans and rice. This is a winner. This is a winner for when you have little kids around, and it costs about $1. Anyways, there's the thought.
I mean, we could do a whole episode on food choices for families, because I thought you were going a different route there, which was that you're also setting all sorts of habits around, if you use food as your primary reward.
100% true.
Believe it or not, you can set kids up for obesity later in life.
100% true.
If you prepare a separate meal for your kids,
don't do that.
Different food than the parents are eating, you are setting them up for bad things in terms of their food habits. So that's for another day, but maybe it impacts your grocery budget a little bit. Make them eat what you're eating.
Can I let me throw out a rant here while we're pursuing bunny trails? How about this old chestnut, this Jim, when the bratty kid refuses to eat what mother has prepared for the family or for the family and the guests? I'm not hungry. That one always works well for moms, especially love that one. I'm not hungry. Oh, she's not hungry. And then after the meal, suddenly the child is inspired with hunger once the food has been put away. And what I really need is some Doritos, a Pop-Tart, some popcorn. And that is effectively the child's meal. And the child has gamed you. And when you give in to that, you're creating precedents for this kid. What do you think they're going to do when they don't live with you? Well, I can tell you what they're going to have for dinner. They're going to have popcorn, Doritos, and Pop Tarts.
That's right.
So, a little aside, a little parenting food aside while we're ranting.
Yeah, that's good. Well, let's hit a few rapid fire here. You were interested in travel
I
and
am.
vacations. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I don't buy it for a half second.
Okay.
I think having worked with, again, this is one of those that's not correlated to income.
Underreporting alert.
I believe that people budget an amount for vacation, and that's probably enough to fund whatever their usual summer road trip or whatever that might be. And then they take big old vacations based on, oh, we got a bonus or we got the tax return, and that they're
Yeah.
not including that. So that's just a personal aside that I think this might be underreported. But what do you think people put on their budget sheets when it comes to travel and vacation?
Great question. I'm going high, and I'm shooting for somewhere between what they report and reality. So I'm going to say 12%.
The answer is 2.52%.
Oh, bull hockey!
So that would come out to $268 a month.
Bull hockey.
Okay, so again, I know what mine is, and it's a lot closer to the number you just said. But for the average, we're getting to 2.52%.
I don't know if you had. This is all very interesting stuff. I don't know if you had a therefore here. I'm going to create a therefore out of this thing because it fires me up. It's kind of like the agreement between your vision and your budget, and that those things need to be heading the same direction together. If the budget that you put down on paper or in your app or whatever doesn't reflect reality of how you're actually living, you're just fooling yourself every single month. It's like that. It's like the thing that, well, I tend to have prayer time every day. Really? What if we just watched you for an entire week? How many times a week do you do that? Okay, well, once. Okay, well, just say that. Just say that it's once a week. You'll let the pressure off. You won't live in anxiety, and you'll have the blessing of being honest with yourself. So you always say this when you're talking to people about budgets, just reflect reality. Just say what's actually there, and then we can move on from there. So that's a strong tip for everybody. Your budget shouldn't be what you think it ought to be or what you wish it was. Let's start with what's actually there, and then you can kind of start coaching the stream to move in specific directions. But you have to start with what's real. That number is not real.
Okay. I agree. I think that budgeting is probably a lot like dieting. You don't want to go from, well, I'm spending 40% more than I'm making and we're blowing it in every category, and now we're going to try to save 20% of our income each month.
Right.
And have this perfect thing. Start with, here's where we are, and take small steps. My wife has been using this new app that tracks her food, and she was kind of frustrated because she's just a go-getter. So she was like, I'll go full on. And they're telling me to have like 30 calories less each week. And sure enough, a few months into this, she's like, I'm kind of enjoying the progress we're making here. It's great. Getting stronger and, having the results that I want. But it's because the app knows if we just try to dive headfirst into the deep end, we will drown. So better to make small changes and make changes to your budget. That's something that I want to make sure people hear. The budget is not supposed to be a static document forever. Like, if you haven't changed your grocery budget in the past 3 years, kudos to you, but I'll say most people have. Because the cost of groceries has changed a lot. So don't be afraid to change the budget and say, hey, even values have changed. There's whatever. You're allowed to change this thing, but make sure it reflects reality.
For sure. Another little happy aside. You mentioned Amelia's dieting thing. I would like to throw out a little dieting app reco. We're going to do an episode and a tease. We're going to do an episode this summer on weight loss, and I've got some awesome stories to share. And we're headed to Texas in a couple of weeks, where we're going to film one of those episodes. And anyways, I was just talking with a friend this morning. We're both seeing success on this dieting app. And it's because of what you just said, which is I'll get to the end of the day, or I'll get to dinner, I don't know, 6 o'clock. And it's going like, you're way below your calories for today. You need to get closer to that target. One, you'll feel satiated. And two, your body won't go into starve mode. So anyways, the name of the app that I like and use is called Lose It. Real simple, Lose It. And it just tracks everything. It shows you macros. It'll tell you, and it gives you these very interesting little observations. It'll throw up an alert that goes, every time you eat eggs before noon, you do better on your day's worth of calories. And you're like, I didn't know that, but that's really
Is it
interesting
free?
to know. Yeah, it is free. There's a subscription step up, but there's a free version.
That's awesome. Yeah, maybe we'll do a whole series on kind of food and health and finance, because that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's hit one more that tends to be, again, for the people we work with. Not everybody. I will tell you, there's families that we work with that are zero in this category, and they're not.
I know what
interested.
you're going to say.
But a
Giving.
lot of the families we work with, this is a big one. What do you think it is, Stephen?
Giving.
That's right. Giving, generosity. So this would include money given to a 501c3 organization that you can get a tax deduction for. If you've never thought about doing that type of giving, you could give to Abraham's Wallet. That would be a tax deductible 501c3 you could support.
So you're telling me that one of the government's policies is if I give to a specific kind of charity, they will take the number that I owe on taxes and they'll take it down just because I gave money to somebody?
That's right. If you give to Abraham's Wallet.
Well,
or some other organization.
This is the only category that you've brought up that I feel personally nervous about it, because I want this number to be high for the sake of our families. I want to believe the best about our families, and I hope this number is high. So
again, I'm just going to tell you, this is not a Abraham's Wallet number. This is the number of families that work with our firm.
Sure.
Some of which share our values, and others of which they would come from a different place. I think serve them all with excellence, but and we even kind of offer, hey, there's some wisdom in this area of generosity, but it's not. Don't take this as a commentary on the state of our listeners. That's not. No,
I don't. When I say our people, I mean the firm.
Okay, great. What do you think it is?
Well, America is the most charitable nation that's ever existed on planet Earth. And we, as a nation, give more than most other civilized countries combined. The Bible recommends 10% as a starting point. And yet, I know I've worked on a church staff before. I know what people actually give to their local church. I'm going to assume that our families are more generous than the average churchgoer, and I'm going to say we're at 7%.
You're going to be pleased. We're at 9.11%.
I started to say 9, and then I talked myself off of it. That's good.
Okay. So again, when I'm coaching somebody through giving, I've got to be very careful that this is not a law. There is not a law. We have a really cool episode that we should link in this one called "Must We Tithe?"
Deal.
And we don't have to tithe to be loved by the Lord.
Fact.
But I often coach people that 10% is a great starting point if you just have no idea for what this should be. And maybe even more important than what the number is, I like to encourage people to dream about what it would look like to have that number increase over time.
Yes.
So giving, there you go. On average, 9.11%. That's
okay.
$972 a month.
Cool.
If everybody was giving $972 a month, we'd be pretty pleased, I think.
We'd be healthy.
Okay, I want to do some rapid fires on some smaller categories, Steve. So, what do you think? I'm just going to give you a category. You're going to give me an answer, and I'm going to tell you what it is. Why don't we go with dollar amounts for these? Because these are small,
Okay.
less important for them to be a percentage of income.
Okay.
How much do you think people spend on pets?
Oh man. 125.
$46.64.
Okay.
How about gifts? This would be not generosity or
$100.
tithing and things like that. $102.46.
Wow, twice as much as on pets. That's nice.
Yeah, hallelujah. What about clothing?
200.
$147.23.
Okay. I'll take that, Bob, for 147.
Car insurance and maintenance. And I will say on this one, nobody budgets enough.
Right, because you believe in budgeting, putting money towards that, even if you have a month where you're not spending money on your car.
Yeah, that means if my car insurance is $1,200 a year, that's $100 a month, and I need an oil change. And guess what? I need tires once every 2 years and a brake job once every 4. People don't remember that stuff. So what do you think?
Let's say 185.
Ooh, you're pretty close. 182.65.
Oh, nice.
Gasoline, and this one, frankly, I don't think anybody's like, I'm really going to splurge on gasoline this month. I think it's more a factor of where they live and how far they have to drive. But what do you think they spend?
A family. So we're going to assume 2 vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, some families have 2 vehicles, some families have 4, and some have 1, but continue.
225.
Man, you're getting close here. It's 218 and 3 cents.
Awesome.
How about, what do you think people put?
I'm in the financial industry, Mark. I mean,
That's true. What do you think people put for what I call funny money? Meaning
$60.
I always encourage each spouse to have just some money that they're allowed to blow on whatever the heck they want. If they want to spend it on lattes,
$63.
okay, it's $125.37
For the couple.
for the couple.
I nailed it.
Oh, you were thinking individually?
Yeah.
Okay. And what about home goods? So your Amazon stuff, this is your paper towels, things like that.
Oh boy. $80.
$162.19.
Whoa, twice as much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know what those things cost.
This one's going to be hard for us gentlemen. I don't think this is really our category. Personal care. So that's everything.
Hair and nails.
Hair and nails
category.
Shampoos, fancy fragrances.
180.
Personal care budget, $85.78.
I approve of that.
Okay. And we'll do this one as a last one. How much do you think people spend on gym and fitness?
Well, I think a lot of people don't. So I'm going to put it at $35.
$68 even.
That's good.
Yeah. So those of us who do the CrossFit, we think, to be a member of a large kind of Globo gym.
You guys are killing the averages.
That's right. There's definitely the not infrequent $300 a month family in there.
Yikes.
So I hope this was helpful. What surprised you the most on kind of those numbers, Steve?
Well, I was encouraged on giving. I was disgusted with people's reporting on vacations. I know that number's not right. And I was amazed at how well I did on some things. I just feel excellent about myself.
Yeah, I think those families in positions like ours who haven't necessarily had to be in a move recently, so our housing is it's on the lower end as a percentage of income because we've been in houses for a long time and maybe haven't had to navigate that storm. I think we're feeling probably pretty good about some of these numbers. If somebody's listening to this and they're like, well, I just had to move cross country and my house is 30% of my income, and my groceries are a lot, and I'm having new kids, and we are trying to figure out how we're going to do childcare, then maybe some of these numbers are discouraging to you.
Right. There's obviously seasons of greater need where there's a squeeze on. I was just talking to somebody who was getting all upset this week about his housing situation and what they spend on groceries. And he's at the very beginning of a career. And I'm like, it's okay. And he felt guilty because he wasn't putting more towards like investment and retirement. And I'm like, dude, you have a baby and one on the way. Don't worry about it. This is life. There are squeeze seasons. It's okay.
That's right. We didn't talk about savings
or investment.
We didn't talk about savings in all these numbers, and that's a category where if there's one category that is the most aspirational,
right,
I've got to say it's savings. And so, because we're looking usually at what people have after their paycheck, or if they own a business, maybe after the business's retirement plan has been funded, then we're talking here things like emergency fund buildup, college savings. If there's taxable savings, we put that in here, and things like funding your Roth IRA. So, what do you think? What do you think people intend as a percentage of their income to go into that non-401k savings bucket?
Gosh, that's a good question. What do people intend to put towards savings and investments of their income? I would say people
including college savings in there.
Say what?
I'm including college savings in there.
Okay. I'd say they intend to save 7.5%.
People are a lot more optimistic than that. They intend to save 18.4%.
Wow.
And that's where I think a lot of the, for example, the travel budget comes from. Hey, we're gonna go to Europe this summer, so we're gonna skip the Roth contributions.
Yep, totally believe that.
Well, we've done a large podcast now covering what people actually spend on their budgets. I hope this was helpful. If you're hearing this and you're going, I have no idea where to even start, this doesn't sound anything like what I spend on a budget, I would encourage you to go back to the Critical Skills of Money episode where we talk about budgeting. And like you said, Stephen, we start with just get an idea of what reality is. If you have no clue what you spend on any of these categories, then you can't really be intentional about where you're putting your money. So I would go back and just start there. Just start with what are we actually spending and where are we putting the money that the Lord is entrusting us with.
Hey, if you liked this content, be sure to like it and subscribe and share it with somebody. And remember, no matter how you're doing and leading your family, God's love for you is huge and His grace is granted.